of Canadian basketball, I didn't get a chance to play this the other day, but Steve Nash, who is the most unlikely story, when I take a look, and again, we just talked about the paths it takes that to get to be just a pro in Canada. Certainly of its time, the first guy I know that even that I was aware of what he had done, and I thought it was like the most incredible thing ever, was Leo Routens. For me, that's the one that I knew. I remember, we played at St. Mike's, and there's this whole thing. Then he eventually goes to Syracuse, and I'm Jim Boeheim. I'm like, oh my, how can a kid even be on the team? Like I just couldn't fathom that. Then he gets drafted by the 76ers, and I'm losing my mind. And now, on a regular basis, I wouldn't know what the actual numbers. It's in the hundreds that are playing south of the border. But they're not just making the team anymore,
right?
As we see. And so for Steve Nash, of really British descent, okay, let's just say.
But when was he born in South Africa?
He was born in South Africa, British descent. His first sport probably was soccer.
Yeah.
He was not 6'7". There was all these things. Lives in Victoria. He goes to Santa Clara. Yeah, the NBA powerhouse, right? And so now I look back on it. He's always been, because the way he holds himself. I'm talking as a human being, some of the things he represents. So he gets up at the Hall of Fame, and so he gives his speech. Here's just a little bit of Steve Nash, property of the National Basketball Association, and I would assume ESPN. Here is Steve Nash.
I'd sent out 30 tapes to colleges around the United States. It was my dream to play Division I basketball. Nobody really liked what they saw on those tapes. But what they couldn't see on the tapes was a relentless obsession and work ethic that would never diminish for 20 plus years. I remember in high school I went to the Las Vegas Invitational, and I thought this could be my chance to be spotted by a college coach. We didn't get many in Victoria, British Columbia, all those years ago. And we walked into the gym, and it was packed, and there was Hall of Fame coaches there. Coach K, Roy Williams, go down the line, Bobby Knight, Jason Kidd's playing in the gym. I thought, this is my chance, this is my chance. Before the little fellas from British Columbia could get on the court, they all left, so that was my chance out the window. I'll have to come another day.
I mean, look, there's a lot more to obviously that, but when you look at Steve Nash, and I talk about certain influences that for a generation that a given athlete will have. I mean, if we look at Tiger Woods, I mean, what was that impact on golf itself for those that wanted to and didn't look like the previous golfers, didn't look like what the country club looked like. And here was a guy who was maybe the best we'd ever seen. Is Steve Nash that for Canada? Because I know it's not the same south of the border when you bring up this subject.
Stephen John Nash is the most influential basketball player not named Vincent Lamar Carter in Canadian history. Now, Vince is not Canadian, but his impact on basketball in Canada cannot be understated in the least. You can't be, this is supposed to be exaggeration or over, I guess, what do we say? What's the word I'm looking for here? Overreaction Tuesday after overreaction Monday. But you can't overreact to what Steve Nash has brought to this country, not only for just Canadian kids, but for kids who look like Steve in Canada, who, well, I guess, and here we go again with the condition. Well, a guy like Steve, he doesn't look like he should be able to play basketball. What does that have? What does a basketball player look like at the end of the day? And Steve Nash is an example of what a basketball player looks like. Jason Kidd's also anyone could be a basketball player. But a great basketball player takes all those intangibles that doesn't matter your geography or your racial background, your religious belief, whatever the case might be. It's about the hard work. It's about taking the opportunities when they present themselves and then going beyond what you think it needs. And here's a guy who was behind Kevin Johnson, who could be a Hall of Famer, Jason Kidd, who's now a Hall of Famer. They're all in the same backcourt. And he had to find his way and navigate that thing. And, he didn't become Steve Nash till he's almost 30. Think about this. Until he went back to Phoenix. And that Robert Sarver and that ownership group in Phoenix took a chance on a 30-year-old point guard, which is rare, and changed his life. I mean, again, we talked about elements earlier, all the things with R.J. Barrett and how this could be, you need all those variables to make the Duke tournament or the Duke tour work. And the same thing happened in Phoenix. You needed a Mike D'Antoni there to speed up the game, to make it palatable for Nash to do what he does on a regular basis. They made him the core of what they did, and that changed their fortunes. And that changed Steve Nash's fortunes because he became a two-time MVP of the league, a most unlikely two-time MVP of the league.
What is his strongest quality as a basketball player? If you have Steve Nash on your team, what is the thing that has made him a two-time MVP and a Hall of Famer?
Wow, that's tough to drill down to one. I mean, selflessness is one thing, but he said something during, I think, one of the interviews post Hall of Fame speech where he said, I should have shot 20 times a game because he's one of the greatest shooters in NBA history as well. I mean, for having a point guard shoot over 50% for his entire career, and most of those shots are like long jumpers, and like he goes to the basket too. But, you know, to have that kind of career that he had and be one of the most proficient shooters in NBA history, you know, tells you that maybe if he had taken another 10, 12 shots a game, who knows? Maybe he'd be, you know, maybe won a couple more MVPs, although, and we get into these conversations, I don't want to call them arguments because most of the time most people lose against me. No, we have these discussions about if Nash should have been a two-time MVP. And I actually think the year that Dirk Nowitzki won it in 2007 was Nash's best year, and he should have won that year. I thought LeBron should have been the MVP in 2005 and Shaq in 2006 because you look at what he did and taking that team, the Miami Heat, to the finals. And then when he got injured, Dwayne Wade took over and it changed his narrative as well. But, you know, Steve Nash definitely earned everything he got in the NBA, and you have to respect that because I don't use the word deserve. I think it's the worst word in sports and just one of the worst words, period.
In life, right?
Yeah,
I mean, who is deserving of anything?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if someone says they earned it, then I'm with you.
I respect that.
I'm with you. But he deserved it. Yeah, it's just a word that I think people like to throw out there because it makes them feel good, and it's that bias towards that person that's showing the respect and love. But the reality is, he earned it. Every inch of what he did, as he said, you know, he goes to Santa Clara, and I mean, I had no idea who he was. I mean, I'm a college basketball fan, but I obviously wasn't watching a whole bunch of Santa Clara. Their games aren't televised, and if they are, you're watching on the internet somewhere.
You're watching in Santa Clara, probably.
Yeah, you're not knowing. But I think it was just a wonderful story. Again, talking about the influence that one has. Also,
can I ask you about earning? Because my mother raised me right, and I came bearing gifts.
Oh, look at this!
And you guys have earned some things.
This is
you know,
unexpected.
I don't know what size you have, so you know, I'm pulling them out, courtesy of my guys over at. Loyal to a T. We have some T-shirts from Full Court 21 Canada.
Very
my
nice.
Basketball tournament.
Now, that's coming up soon, isn't
No,
it?
we actually had the World Finals in August.
Because I wasn't around, we weren't on the show. That's right.
So I got a military green one. It's, you know,
Look
very
at that.
nicely done.
Those are good. I like that one. I like the black.
Pocket tee because you like the pocket tee.
Yeah,
you like
I do.
the pocket tee.
I do.
And on the back it says, "Commit, compete, conquer."
There you go.
That's one of our slogans. But I came bearing gifts for you and the staff here. So, you know, like I said, we'll talk about that later. But Full Court 21 Canada, the world's most unique basketball tournament. Canada has gone back-to-back all-world champions. So applaud that, along with Steve Nash.
Okay.
I mean, we want to piggyback on Steve Nash if we could. So segues, like you said, are for kids as well as tricks are. So you're going to have that.
You want to talk about